Good evening, everybody. My name is Peyton Manning. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to give everybody time to join in to the meeting, and we'll get started around 6:35 or so. I appreciate it. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us for tonight's DC Plug Initiative, Feeder 15009 Open House Meeting. My name is Peyton Manning from Tina Boyd and Associates, and my team and I are going to be providing additional outreach support for PEPCO and the Department of Transportation's DC Plug Initiative on this project. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide a brief overview of the DC Plug Initiative and an update on the design activity for Feeder 15009. This project will run through Ward 4, focusing on undergrounding deep overhead power lines in order to increase resiliency in the area. In this meeting, we also hope to address any questions and concerns you may have about the design and upcoming construction. First, I'd like to introduce the team that we have present tonight. From PEPCO, we have Donna Cooper, the region president, Yamani Kadane, project manager, and Laisha Dougherty, the community relations coordinator. From the design consultant team, PSI, we have Alan Yang, the project manager and president. From DDOT, we have Anthony Soriano, the deputy manager, and Molly Burns, the technical writer. And also from my team, we have Honora Moss, our outreach coordinator. Anthony Soriano and Yamani Kadane will be leading this evening's meeting. However, before I hand it over to them, I would like to make you aware that this meeting will be recorded so that we can accurately capture your comments and concerns. The team will start by doing a presentation. Everyone's mic except the presenters will be muted during the presentation to avoid any background noise. If you have any questions throughout the meeting, we would ask that you leave them in the question and answer section of the WebEx platform. As you may see, the options on the bottom right of your screen. And if at any point a question comes to mind, just enter it into the chat and we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. Excuse me. To open up the presentation, I'll be sharing a brief video with you which highlights the DC Plug Initiative process in undergrounding these power lines. So as you can see, we're at the DC Plug website, which is dcpluginfo.com. Here you can find a variety of information about the initiative as well as the individual projects.
The District of Columbia has experienced more violent storms in recent years, resulting in extensive power outages. For this reason, the district and PEPCO are working to reduce power outages by moving many of the overhead power lines underground to improve the infrastructure and enhance resiliency. Neighborhoods affected by construction will be notified well in advance of the project start date. This will include the posting of no parking signs. Construction will begin with the coordination of streets and sidewalks impacted in your neighborhood. Signs will be posted, and flaggers will direct vehicles and pedestrians around construction crews. Before any digging begins, other existing utility lines that may be in the path of construction will be carefully identified and marked in the field. In some cases, small plants, trees, and grass will need to be removed from public spaces to allow for digging and placement of new underground equipment. But we will do our best to retain as much vegetation as possible. Any public property disturbed by this work will be restored to its original condition. Construction workers will use asphalt saws to cut the pavement. A backhoe will dig a trench for the placement of the distribution line. Periodically along the main primary line, manholes and tap holes will be required to house equipment and to provide access for inspections and repairs. The backhoe will also be utilized in these cases to excavate for these structures. In order to meet jurisdictional safety requirements, shoring will be provided in the trench to ensure stability. Pepco uses either fiberglass or plastic PVC conduit to protect underground power lines. Concrete will be poured into the trench to encase and secure the conduit, and steel plates will be placed over the trench temporarily to make the road usable to vehicle traffic. After the concrete is set, the steel plates will be removed and the trench will be repaved in sections. Transformers, switches, and other ancillary equipment will be set in place. Equipment such as transformers and switches will be installed either in the roadway or the sidewalk, depending on space availability. Underground cable will be installed. Landscaping will be restored as needed and roads paved. Overhead primary electric wires will be removed from poles, but secondary service and communication lines will remain. Finally, the new underground power lines will be energized. While electricity will remain on throughout the project, there will be a short scheduled outage needed to switch from the overhead lines to the new underground system. We appreciate your patience while the district and Pepco improve the future of electrical service for the District of Columbia residents.
Great. I hope that gave everybody a better understanding as to what the construction will look like when we start. And now I'd like to pass it on to the region president, Donna Cooper, to give some brief opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Peyton. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone that has joined us on this evening to learn a little bit more about the DC Plug initiative. And let me start by saying I'm hopeful that everyone that is participating on this evening has heard about DC Plug. So when I say that, we have been at the table with the District of Columbia government since around 2012, 2013 regarding this important project. And it started with Mayor Gray. We had experienced a derecho in the District of Columbia, which was unprecedented. During that time, Pepco was involved in a lot of system upgrades, improving our reliability. But the reality was that it was almost like with the high levels of wind, it was almost like a hurricane on land that toppled trees and that directly impacted our infrastructure. And it wasn't just in the District of Columbia, because this happened on the Northeast corridor as well as a little bit west. What it resulted in was multi-day outages. And I remember at that time, Mayor Gray reached out to the CEO of Pepco Holdings, and we began to have a discussion regarding how could we move forward with the concept of resiliency, whereby resiliency and reliability are connected. There's a distinction. It's on how do you harden the infrastructure or do something different so that when you have significant weather events, that you are preventing as well as lowering the impact that that weather event has on the electric distribution system. For many years, the District of Columbia had talked about undergrounding and selective undergrounding. However, the costs were extremely substantial. So we came together through a task force. And I always say that task force was unprecedented because it consisted of the District of Columbia government, of course, multiple departments and agencies One you will hear from on tonight, which is the lead agency, the Department of Transportation. But you also had the Public Service Commission, the Office of the People's Counsel, a representative representing the Council of the District of Columbia. You had representatives from the community as well as the other utilities. And we literally worked, I would say, probably for a 1-year period of time to identify a solution, looking at affordability, looking at what was the construct that we would apply regarding undergrounding, which lines would be underground to get the most outcomes and impact regarding resiliency, as well as the elements of reliability. So we came up with a plan that was approved by the council. And when I say approved by the council, because the plan was enabled through legislation and it was approved unanimously back in around 2014. But there were a few challenges with the particular construct, and we had to go back to the council with some modifications to that legislation, and which it was approved around 2017. And that gave us the guidance and the authorization to move forward with DC Plug. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about it in this context. When we think about the downtown footprint of the District of Columbia, the majority of those lines are underground. So what we're talking about is undergrounding the lines that are largely within the communities in which we reside and live, wards 3, 4, 5, 7, as well as 8. We had to talk about methodology also, because we were not going to be undergrounding all power lines in the wards, but it was like, how do you prioritize them? Which particular feeders were going to be most challenged as it relates to if you had a significant weather event as well as performance? Number 2, how are we going to ensure that even if you rank those feeders based on performance, how are you also ensuring that there was equity with the various wards, so that one particular ward was not receiving more feeders being underground than the next? So we developed a very thoughtful plan, as I shared, enabling legislation that led to the execution, and a very comprehensive customer education and engagement plan. Because as you know, as residents of the District of Columbia, when it comes to executing work, we're a very densely populated city, and construction work can have a lot of impacts. So we are committed to ensuring that you are advised every step of the way, that we're coordinating regarding the work that we're executing. The video that you just saw was giving an example of what that work looks like, as well as the different phases of that particular work. And so tonight is just one opportunity for us to discuss with you the project, to hear your feedback, and to ensure that this isn't over in terms of our discussion. As our work is being executed, you will have a direct line of communication to us. So we're excited about the project because it's not a question of whether or not we're going to experience more significant weather events. We know that we are, but how can we really build a more resilient system that can be responsive and withstand those particular events? And this particular DC Power Line Undergrounding Initiative is just that. So we have taken the steps to bring it to fruition, and I'm really excited that we can execute a project that will lend itself to significant benefits to our residents. So I'll pause, and our customers. So I'll pause and turn it over to Yamani, who is the project director, and you'll also hear from Anthony, who is our partner as well. And so it's a $500 million project. There is a split between the District of Columbia as well as PEPCO, and I'll turn it over for additional details, as well as capital improvement funding that is coming through DDOT. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you on this evening. And again, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Donna. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yamani Kitane. I'm the project manager from PEPCO side for DC Plug. So Dana gave a good background and history on the program. So I'll focus on the scope. So the scope, this schematic here shows the existing overhead system, and on the next page we'll see when we underground the primaries and laterals, the impact through the outage that residents will see. As you can see on this diagram here, there is a tree at the top corner of this page where when it falls, as the color change from green to red, that means each house is seeing an outage as a result of a tree falling on a primary line. You can tell that the entire neighborhood is being impacted by one tree falling on a primary line. So the scope of DC plug is to underground primaries and laterals. As we do that, the next page will show the resiliency that will be achieved by undergrounding. Please go to the next page. Now the dashed lines here represent the undergrounded feeder. So as you can see, when the tree falls, there's no overhead primaries, so it's not gonna hit any wires, and then the entire neighborhood is not gonna see an outage. But the project does not include undergrounding the secondaries. So the secondaries do not provide power for an entire neighborhood, but only a few houses. So as you can see towards the bottom of the page, when a tree falls and hit a secondary, only a few houses will see an outage. So overall, with DC plug, we are eliminating a large outages, only minimizing outages to a few houses. And as discussed earlier, we are focusing on undergrounding the primaries and laterals, because if we decide to underground the entire system, including the secondaries, the cost will be prohibitive. So that is the scope of DC plug overall from a schematic representation point of view. Go to the next page, please. Here is a timeline for feeder 15001, where we stand. We are currently in the design phase. The design was kicked off in January 2021. We went through the design phase 30%. We met with a council member in April 2021. We've completed 65% design phase. Today we are holding our open house. This is basically an opportunity to present the design to the community, familiarize the project. 100% of the design is expected in 2021, and then the final version of the design is due in December 2021. Next page. And here's the timeline for construction. Of course, after we finalize design, we have to go through a procurement process to hire a civil contractor. So we anticipate that civil construction will begin in summer 2022 for this feeder. And then we expect that construction is going to take time, and then will be completed in spring 2024. At the conclusion of the civil construction, that's when the electrical construction will begin. And then we plan to energize the feeder, basically transfer customers from the overhead to the underground system in fall 2024, depending on, of course, weather and other conditions. Now, once we underground the feeder, we will energize the overhead, the current overhead, and then we will remove the current overhead wires and top of the poles. As stated in the video, the poles are going to remain. We're just going to remove the top 3 feet of the poles, because the poles are going to be supporting the secondaries as well as communication wires. Next page, please. Here I'll transition to the DDOT Deputy Program Manager, Anthony Soriano, to go over additional details on the scope. Anthony.
Great, thanks so much, Imani. And as mentioned, I'm Anthony Soriano with DDOT, serve as Deputy Program Manager for the DC plug. And I'd like to speak to the specific scope of work that you'll see when the crew or crews mobilize to the site to perform the civil construction, which, as Yamani noted, is going to, we plan on commencing that next summer with the work continuing through the spring of 2024. Now, I just want to say that you will not be impacted that entire time. This is a moving project. We'll see later on where the footprint of the project is, but I just want to state that there's not going to be work in front of your residence or business that entire span. But when the crew or crews do mobilize to the site in the summer, the first thing you'll see is the installation of tree protection and erosion and sediment control in the immediate areas of their work. This will be followed by the installation of the duct bank, electrical manholes, tap holes, transformer enclosures. The structures, we'll take a closer look at those in a minute. Following the underground installation, we'll have the roadway restored along with the pavement markings. And then, as Yamani also noted, following the civil construction completion, the electrical work will begin, and that involves the installation of the equipment going into the manholes, tap holes, transformer enclosures, then the pulling of the cables through the duct bank, energizing of the underground system, then the removal of the overhead primary lines that were replaced by these underground lines. Next slide, please. Here you'll see some of the examples of the structures as they'll appear following the construction and restoration. In the upper left, we have a transformer enclosure, a switch manhole is shown in the upper right, and a tap hole on the bottom of the screen. For size purposes, if we go back to that slide real quick, the bottom, the tap hole, that's approximately 3 feet by 3 feet square. The transformer enclosure is approximately 4 feet by 6 feet. And then the switch manhole, which all you see is the access frame and cover there, is a much larger structure, but the portion that's visible will simply be that manhole frame and cover. And moving on to the next slide, here is a general overview of the project location. I'll note that the northern boundary is Dahlia Street Northwest. It does have an extension up to Dogwood along 9th Street Northwest. Our southern limit is Rittenhouse Street, again with the small extension below Rittenhouse on 3rd Street Northwest. Our eastern boundary is Blair Road. No work aside for a small portion is actually occurring on Blair Road, but that's our eastern boundary. And the western limit is 9th Street. Again, Aspen has a small extension past that 9th Street boundary. The next slides we'll move through rather quickly, but what they'll show is the proposed locations of the underground duct bank, which is in the light blue. The dark blue shows those structures that I pointed out on the previous slide. Now, again, we're going to move through these at a rather quick pace. If anyone is interested in taking a closer look at these, believe that we'll definitely be uploading this presentation to our project website. That link will be shared again at the end of the presentation or towards the end of the presentation, and along with some contact info. So feel free to reach out directly to the DC Plug team through that contact info if you'd like to take a closer look. So as we move through, what I wanted to point out also is that all of this is taking place within the public right-of-way. We will not be performing any work on private property. Now, there's going to be some structures that are located behind the curb. We look to position those so that they're not directly in front of a residence. We look to kind of get towards the shared property line, and also place them in areas that aesthetically make the most sense. So that's all stuff that's taken into consideration as the design is ongoing. And we'll move now into the discussion on our maintenance of traffic during construction. We'll be working to maintain accessibility for the residents and businesses within the project corridors. Parking impacts will occur. There will be advance notice as required by the district. The 72 hours in advance, we'll be posting emergency no parking signs. We'll also be maintaining safe accommodations for pedestrians and cyclists throughout construction. And you'll probably get tired of hearing from us because we are constantly providing public outreach to make sure that everyone is aware of what's happening. Occasionally, plans change, and we work quickly to make sure that that information is shared. Now, occasionally, a road may need to be temporarily closed completely if, say, a structure is being installed and a crane needs to put that in place. That's temporary day of type of thing, and maybe contained to just a morning or an afternoon. Again, we will be communicating throughout the project as instances like that may occur. Our next few slides are going to show some general maintenance of traffic configurations. Mainly show the work with travel in two directions being maintained. So there might be the loss of a parking lane. Occasionally we'll be working on a one-way street if and if that one-way street does have one side of parking, we might have to eliminate that parking temporarily as our work moves through the area. But it'll be rolling restrictions on the emergency no parking, and again communicated with advanced notification as the project progresses. And now I'd like to take this time to turn the presentation over to Laisha Doherty, who will speak about the integrated communication strategy. Laisha.
All right, yeah, so good evening, everyone. My name is Laisha Doherty, and I work in PEPCO Government Affairs and leading the communications and outreach efforts for the DC Plug Initiative. One of the unique things about the DC Plug Initiative is that we have a very robust outreach strategy. We find that it's very important to us to communicate to the residents and stakeholders early and often. And so we have set a timeline of events in ways that we wish to communicate with you all and which ways we find are impactful. So first, we do have a project meeting playbook in which we have meetings during the design phase and also during the construction phase of the project. Right now we are in the design phase, and as mentioned earlier, we have met with the council member's office, we have attended the ANC meetings, and the next phase of that is meeting with you all tonight at our virtual open house. As we continue to move forward through the project, we will do individual notices as needed. Which will look like door hangers or a flyer or something in the community to identify something that we're working on. We also will execute outbound phone calls, which is something that will ring to your phone lines and may leave a message, or if you answer, you will hear the message. As we approach construction, we like to do a 30-day kind of outreach prior to the start. And so we have a 30, 15, and 7-day outreach plan. Again, those look like in the forms of attending an ANC meeting, hosting another open house, door hanger deliveries, et cetera, et cetera. Again, we just find that communicating with you all early and often has been really impactful. Some of the common collateral that we use include the undergrounding video, which you all had a chance to view earlier. We also conduct social media outreach using both PEPCO and DDOT's social media handles, #DCPlug. We have project fact sheets, flyers and door hangers, and project maps. Worksite signs are signs that you will see in the community. There will be construction signs, but they will signify DC Plug by having our very distinct DC Plug branding logo, along with our colors and the information for the project hotline, the website, and the email address. One unique thing is that we also have our dedicated forms of communication as mentioned earlier. Our project hotline is a 1844 number. So for those on the phone, the project hotline number is 1-844-758-4146. Again, that is 1-844-758-4146. And that is our way to communicate with you all who may have questions. And we do answer that line. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call. We also have our project website, and the project website is dcpluginfo.com. It's dcpluginfo.com. We also have our project email address, which we do answer and check at least within every 48 hours. And so that email address is questions@dcpluginfo.com. Again, that's questions@dcpluginfo.com.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Laisha. I'm not sure. I think your mic went out on my computer. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So before we get started with the Q&A section, I just want to draw everybody's attention to the Title VI form. At the end of the meeting, you'll be redirected directly to DDOT's Title VI form. And it's a brief questionnaire that we ask that you would take a moment to fill out. And if you don't have access to a computer right now, you can do it later on. If you're on the phone, the link to get to this survey would be rebrand.ly/dcplug feeder 15009-comments. So again, it's the same link that you've seen to access the meeting. If you would just add the dash comments at the end, it would be fantastic if you could fill that out. So at this time, I'd like to open up the meeting to any questions. I haven't seen any come through the chat. I would like to remind everybody that on the bottom right, you'll see a Q&A section of the WebEx platform. If you're on the phone, you can press *3 to raise your hand, and we will unmute you so that you can bring any questions to the team that you may have at this time. And I'll just give everybody a few minutes to push any questions through.
Peyton, while we're waiting for any questions that do come in, I just wanted to make a couple comments again that were stated earlier. Yamani had noted that we're working strictly on undergrounding the primary lines and that the secondary electrical lines will remain. In addition to the secondary lines, communication lines for cable and internet, those would also remain through following our work. So even if the district and PEPCO together were able to take all of the electric, the primary and the secondary lines, and underground them, the poles would have to remain because those communication lines would be remaining. So it's something that one of the questions that we get often is like, how come all the poles aren't being removed? So I just kind of wanted to make that note.
Yes, thank you so much for pointing that out. I know it is a common question. We do have a couple questions coming through. I'll read them aloud, and whoever feels best fit to answer, if you wouldn't mind stepping forward. So the first question is, will this help with storms?
Yep, Yamana here. So that is correct. So this, the DC plug is a resiliency project against major storms. Of course, when we have major storms, like the way how Donna explained, we initiated a program like the Rituals where we have extended outages. That's the intent of this program, is to underground the primaries and laterals, and that is definitely going to help with the major storms where trees would fall on the primaries and take outage, as the diagram we've looked at earlier shown that when the trees fall after undergrounding, they're not going to be able to hit the primaries and laterals. So that is the intent of the project, to help with the major storms.
Thank you so much, Yamani. The next question we have is, will you be making any effort to remove old and unused service lines when you take down the primary power lines? Many of these lines are still up, but are unused and end in coils or hanging lines.
So all primaries and laterals, once we underground the feeder, they will be removed. The secondaries that are connecting the residence to the transformers, they will remain as is. So the answer to the question is yes, we will be removing primaries and then laterals.
Thank you, Yamani. And then one more question, and again, feel free, anybody, if you have a question, to send it through the chat or through the Q&A. What is the time frame for when this project would be happening, and will we lose power to our house during any phase of the construction?
Oh, this is Anthony. I'll take that. Again, we're looking to start the construction, civil construction, in the summer of 2022, and expect that civil construction to extend into the spring of 2024. The work will be moving throughout the footprint, and you won't experience that in front of your residence, say, that entire duration. The second part of the question was about losing power, and there will be coordinated outages briefly when the transfer occurs from the overhead to the underground. Yamani might be able to provide a little bit of additional information on the brief outage.
Correct, Anthony. Yeah, so during the civil construction, as well as the electrical constructions, customers will not see any power. The only time you will see your power, I guess, switched off is when we transition from the existing overhead to the new underground system. And that is going to be up to 2 hours at most. But based on our previous experience, we were able to reduce that to less than an hour. But we always say that it could take up to 2 hours to transfer the power from the overhead to the underground. And that's only when we switch over. But during civil and electrical constructions, there will not be any power outage.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then also, are you coordinating with the new electrical work at the Walter Reed project?
I think, like Anthony stated, our scope is on the streets that are impacted. I know there is electrical work within Walter Reed project, so which is outside the scope here. But whenever there is an opportunity where multiple projects are within the same street, we do coordinate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yamani. And again, I'll just wait a few more moments for any questions. And then one more time, if anybody's on the phone and wants to ask a question, you can press *3 and that will raise your hand and we can unmute you.
Peyton, this is Anthony again. Just going back to the question about the lines that are unused and coiled up, there is also the potential that those are communication lines as opposed to electric lines that have been abandoned.
Yes.
And that we wouldn't be working with those. Again, it might be worth trying to reach out to those utility groups, whether it's a Comcast or a Verizon, as there's a good chance that those abandoned lines are actually communication lines.
That's a good point too. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And you could call them directly if that is an issue and get them to come take those down. And if there are no more questions, I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening.
Peyton, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did see one came in regarding transformers.
One came in. I'm not seeing that one, Anthony.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it out loud. It says, so transformers on telephone poles will remain as is, but will be connected to the underground lines instead of the current overhead primary lines. Yamani, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yep. So all existing overhead primary lines, laterals, as well as transformer equipments will be undergrounded. Anthony did show what the transformer manhole is going to look like. So we're going to place that underground. So the answer to the question is you're not going to see the overhead transformers as they will be undergrounded.
Thank you guys. And I switched so you could see the picture of those devices.
Right. So that upper left picture is that transformer enclosure, and there will be then some conduit that runs from that enclosure to the utility pole, most likely the utility pole that housed the original transformer. Occasionally, we relocate the transformer to a different utility pole, but in I'd say, over 90% of the locations of an existing transformer, you'll have this transformer enclosure adjacent to or close by the pole that the current transformer is on.
Perfect.
So
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to add one more information. So this is our first feeder in the world. So under our first and second biennial plan that are approved by the Public Service Commission, so far we have a total of 3 feeders in this world. So this is the first, and then we will come back with additional feeders, 2 more feeders that are going to be undergrounded as well. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that as Dana discussed, we're trying to maintain ward equity. So far under first and second biennial, each ward that is covered with a DC plug scope, which is ward 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8, each will have about 3 feeders that are going to be undergrounded.
Perfect. And I see one more question that just came through as well. Is there going to be any change to the electrical wires that come into your house?
The electrical wires that comes to your house are what we call the secondaries, and the secondaries will remain in place. There will not be any change to the secondaries.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm going to wait just another moment just to make sure we don't have any more questions that come through. And again, just want to point out *3 if you're on the phone and have a question, we can unmute you. And also while we're waiting, just want to point out again the contact information for everybody. The project website or the initiative's website would be www.dcplug.info.com. And if you have any questions, you can reach us at questions@dcplug.info.com. And if you want to contact us by phone, the phone number to reach us would be 1-844-758-4146. And on that note, I don't see any more questions coming through. So again, I'd just like to we got one more. Perfect. So the 1 to 2 hour household outages during the period when the secondary wiring is transferred from existing transformer to the new underground one.
So yes, so yeah, the 1 to 2 hour is when that is correct. So the secondary power will be connected from the existing overhead transformer to the new underground transformer. So that's the 1 to 2 hour outage.
Perfect. And Yamani, is there a certain time of the day that typically occurs, or is it just dependent on?
So I think as Laisha stated, we plan to over communicate, and then residents will be notified at least 72 hours in advance when we plan to take the outage. So, and then that outage time frame depends on the system conditions within PEPCO. So we have to look at the integrity of the system. When is the best time to take that outage? We also factor in the best time to take the outage from the residents' perspective as well. So normally, like I said, we say up to 2 hours, but in the past we were able to get it done under 1 hour.
Thank you so much. Are there any more questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand on the phone line. And again, if a question comes through, we'll get to it. But I just want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. And I hope everybody has good health, especially in these kind of odd times. And we can't wait to get into the space where we can have an in-person meeting with you in the future. I appreciate it, and that should conclude tonight's meeting. Have a good one.